everyone. Welcome to the Spiritual Nomad podcast. This is my friend Quantal. We know each other from Instagram, like everybody. But the difference is, like a lot of the other people that have been on the podcast, the difference is I was working at a church in Oceanside, and we were converting half of our old building into being a co-working space, a creative space for people to come and drop in and do work, and just a way to serve the community, rethinking these church buildings and real estate, that people only gather there for an hour on Sundays, and other than like an AA meeting, like the building was empty, and so it's like, how do we make use of our space? And so we were, renovating, remodeling, and doing that. And through Instagram, the Rising Tide Co-work Instagram, we crossed paths, and Quantal dropped in a couple times to work, and as we were in like construction phases, so like halfway done things, but it was cool. And so I think it was one time you were there and we were talking, and somehow like Michael Beckwith got brought up in our conversation. Oh, that's what it was. We had a tenant who was a assistant for a motivational speaker named Lisa Nichols, and she does a lot of work with Michael Beckwith. She spoke at like Agape Spiritual Center up in Beverly Hills and stuff. And then, so she was working there, and then we had that connection. I think we just started talking about like who Lisa Nichols was, who she was like the assistant for or whatever. And then started talking about Michael Beckwith. And then we're like, oh, hey, we have like a lot of spirituality things in common, So thanks for joining me here to talk about some of the spiritual life. We've talked a lot about your creativity, which I want to talk about. It all belongs, it all connects. But
Yeah.
thanks for joining me here for this conversation, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, with a lot of your creative work, so obviously I know a lot of your story just from talking and hanging out and drinking beers at Bagby or whatever, we've been a few different places around, but for people who are listening, what's some of your background as far as like, and how did you end up here in Oceanside?
Yeah, good question. I'm originally from Tennessee, so from the South. Actually, from a spiritual religious standpoint, very conservative um, Bible Belt area of the United States.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been there. I pretty much lived there most of my life. A lot of my friends and family are there, and yeah, from there, me and my wife, we were finally sort of at that standpoint. She actually talked to me about Oceanside all the time, and I was like, oh, whatever. I always felt like I was going to stay there in Cleveland, Tennessee, which is where I'm from, and thought I was going to pretty much stay there forever, or at least in the area. And yeah, it's just things happen. We finally sort of made the decision. She actually got a job out here, and with my work, what I do, I could pretty much work from anywhere as long as I got Wi-Fi and a
Right.
laptop. I'm pretty much good to go. But yeah, we ended up making the decision to sort of pack up everything. She got the job, and we had, drove out here. Yeah, so getting out here definitely a sort of wide opening experience for me. Definitely, I was shell shocked. Sort of being in a part of the United States, and from a culture standpoint, perspective standpoint, even spiritual standpoint, it was just different things that were going on compared to out here. And so yeah, it was almost like starting over from scratch.
Mm.
Honestly, scared to death, but I think at the same time too, is probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me was being able to um, get out here, get out of my comfort zone, and figure out ways to, from the skills and abilities that I have, how do I, you know, connect? How do I, um, do the creative work that I love to do? Yeah, it's all a journey, and but yeah, definitely happy to be out here. Been out here for about 6 years now, and just found a way to just sort of connect with more people, and yeah, so it's like I said, very deeply in gratitude for being here and being able to connect with people like you.
Yeah, man. So I'm curious too, like, in Tennessee, because I moved out here from Indianapolis, Indiana, and so kind of that similar sort of vibes, Midwest, the South, and it's like very Bible belty, very like one way conservative evangelical Christianity is like the main thing. If you talk about spirituality in any way, immediately people are like, are you a Pentecostal or a Baptist? And it's like, I'm not talking about either of those, my man. Like, so which is fine, that's different things are going to serve different people, whatever. But did you grow up like with a history, like in the church with religion?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've always been sort of weird. I mean, I've always been rooted in the church ever since I was little. Been a in the Baptist Southern Baptist church, and so yeah, I've always sort of been around that. Always been around like preachers, and it's sort of weird because even now, like when I look back, a lot of the things that I'm doing now, even with my podcast or even training with helping coach athletes. I find myself sort of in that preacher mode sometimes,
Yeah.
which is weird. Comes around full circle, but yeah, I sort of grew up in that, and yeah, it was just one of those where, you know, definitely a lot of concepts that they how they viewed Christianity. I think being able to, once I got into college and even getting out of college and experience in life coming out here, you sort of see a wider array of different perspectives and that's what I feel. It's sort of born and raised in the Baptist faith, but um, you know when you get connected to certain things or certain events take place, it tends to broaden your vision and
Yeah.
your how you see different things start to not really skew, but it starts to change and mold into something else completely different. So
It evolves, your experience. Like I think people undervalue the reality of how experience impacts their belief, like my wife and I always talk about it's it's obvious whenever people have like traveled the world or even just traveled to other areas of the United States, like a lot of the people from, Southern Indiana are like, they've never really been anywhere other than maybe like the panhandle of Florida for spring break a few times. You know what I mean? Like that's it. They're like Destin, Florida. That's that. Went and, boogie boarded for a week and came home, and it's like, but the more experience though people have, like we have some neighbors here that lived in a van in New Zealand and been in Australia and all through, they met in Bali in a hostel and like all this stuff. And it's like she comes from a conservative Christian background or whatever, but whenever you talk about some things that might be a little bit more spiritually expansive, she doesn't cringe or anything because she's like been in these places in Thailand that are like Buddhist temples and things. It's like there's a more openness from your experience, and that you don't, and that's what I think people think too, is you don't have to always be like shifting your values all the time. You can just be open to other perspectives and ideas without being defensive, and experience is the key thing that
mhm.
does that, opens you up to at least just thinking about things differently. I mean, you being a creative, you probably already have more of an open mind towards that, but
Yeah, it
did
was
that
already
change? Oh, go
yeah
ahead, sorry.
Yeah, it was already sort of. I guess when you're in that cradle space, you're sort of playing around in that realm anyway,
Yeah.
and it's one of those where I think now I think it's going just a little bit deeper for me. Obviously, I'm still learning, but I think who I was even 10 years ago was completely different from who I am now,
Yeah.
and that's good. If it's one of those to where if I still have those core beliefs or core um, you know, not necessarily values, but it's like I feel like this, if I can say something about it, even if we're describing, being a Baptist, I'm Southern Baptist. I'm like, this is the only way to go. If you even think about yoga or meditation or anything like that, Buddhism, any kind of other faith, then you're wrong and
Yeah.
trying to prove that. And instead of, and then we actually talked to this, we was talking, me and my brother, and he tends to be, he's got his own little thing that he's doing right now, and we were just talking, and I think he's starting to sort of open up to some other things, and it's one of those where, like, I always sort of see it as all these philosophies, all these different quote unquote religions, we're all going up the same tree, um, and we're looking for that higher power. We're looking for God, whoever that you praise to. But um, if I'm looking to try to climb up, if I'm looking to try to get a higher awareness of myself, if I happen to, while I'm climbing that branch, if I happen to have a smaller branch from another philosophy or another religion, that's going to help support me as I
Mm,
go up. It's not going to say, hey, that I don't need to disregard that branch. No, everything, everything merges together in some way or fashion. So yeah, be open to, getting other insights from other people, people that's had just crazy experiences. Be willing to sort of learn and sort of figure out, why, how did you feel? What insights did you get from that? I think once you get into that kind of mindset, I really feel like things start to open up for you, and you're more available for a deeper insight. I believe um, when God sees that you're available for it. Sometimes we get
mm,
sort of closed in and constricted because we feel like, or so dogmatic and feel like I am right, you are wrong. And what if none of that was, what if, hey, look, you are just working from a different perspective, a different awareness. And once I once I'm able to just understand that and know, hey, look, I respect and love where you're coming from. Um, and if you're available for, to sort of learn different things, then hey, yeah, let's talk. But um, yeah, it's just one of those where I think once you sort of get out of that mindset, and sometimes you have to go into, you have to experience different things to be able to do that. And
was that for you moving out here? Like, were you a little bit more in that like tribal us and them in and out Christian mentality in Tennessee, or did that begin to break open before you moved here?
yeah, it definitely started shifting before we got out here. It was one of those where my wife, she had, just introduced me to yoga, and starting to practice that, and feeling like, hey, there's a lot of, you start to dive a little bit deeper into the concepts of yoga, and it's like there's a lot of stuff that um, that can help the human body and the mind and spirit.
Yeah.
Um, I can still, go to church and read my Bible and still, you know, meditate and do yoga and stretch and be in union with my body. There is nothing completely, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Would
Um,
there be a time in your life where you would think that was wrong though?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely when I was younger, and I was sort of deep in the sort of Pentecostal Baptist, faith. It was just one of those where I felt like, you know, it was a sin to do certain things, or just all kinds of, you know,
Right.
things like that. But it's one of those where once you experience various things, and you find yourself being more open and more receptive, you're like, well, it's like, no, it's all right, and I think once you start questioning yourself, and you start asking more questions, and
Hmm.
you start inquiring, I think that's when you get some of the greatest answers, and things start opening up for you. I think being introduced to something like that, and with yoga and meditation, and feeling like, well, all I'm doing is just incorporating this into my own um, personal values and my philosophy,
Hmm.
about life, about God. Um, I think it expanded even more once I got out here and I sort of saw, you know, just how people were, how they lived, how they just, a lot of them was just in gratitude, with life, just how people sort of relaxed, just coming from the East Coast, it was real, just like, just a real worker's mentality,
Yeah.
which I still have. But at the same time too, I know hey, look, I don't have to be so hard on myself with a lot of things. I can have a glass of wine and be fine.
Yeah.
It's just one of those where I feel like, okay, if I drink something, that's a sin, that's it. You
Yeah.
know, and it's just now just talking with different people from various backgrounds, even on my podcast, and my creative work. I feel just sort of expanded even more coming out here and learning different philosophies, learning different concepts,
Yeah.
and knowing, hey, all of this, I think everything sort of interconnects in various ways in some way or fashion. And I think understanding that and connecting the dots
Mm.
allows me to have greater insights and to really be able to express and be as authentic as I can be.
Yeah. What are some of those like concepts and insights? Like, were there people that were along the way, like a Michael Beckwith type, or like, what was it? I mean, you mentioned about yoga and meditation. Like, what? Talk to me about like the mind expansion that happened, the evolution that happened. Like, what were things that you were letting go of, and what was replacing those? Like different ideas, concepts, philosophies, just ways of living. Like in like the real transformation. What were those things? What were they marked by?
Yeah, great question. I think it's one of those where I think once you um, start to become a seeker, um, things start popping up in front of you that's probably already been there. You just have to be at the right awareness to see it. And I think just in a lot of circumstances where I, I'll say honestly, uh, besides wanting to incorporate more yoga and doing starting to practice meditation and doing that, really it's sort of weird when I started researching on my book that I started working on, and I wanted to put in all these different concepts, and I started reading more on more of the esoteric teachings, and just even with Michael Beckwith and the things that he talks about, going to Greg Braden and his concept between science and spirituality,
Hmm.
talking about Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Yeah.
and how incredible the human body actually is. And I start, on all this stuff I've been researching for my, just for my book. And the more that I research and learn, like I find something new from one book. I'm like, oh, who's this? And then I search for another book, and I was like,
Yeah.
who's this? And then I search for another book, and that's really how it's been. Like, and I sit there and I absorb all this, and while I'm obviously while I'm doing research, but I'm absorbing all this information and learning how to practice and implement this information. And not to say it, it's just one of those where it's just like at this certain point and that's it. No, it's just one of those where I've just become more, really more aware
Mm.
of who I am and where I am right now, and being perfectly fine in the present moment,
Yeah.
not feeling like, oh, I should be at this point, or I should be, at such and such point. It's just right now, you know, right now, who I am right now is the the best expression of who I could be right now, and that's
Hmm.
something that I try to, I just try to be, even if it's sharing knowledge, um, it's one of those where I think Michael Beckwith might have said one time in um, uh, one of his preachings, but just talked about I'm just real big on planting seeds, and
Mm.
I'm wanting to figure out ways to circulate that energy, circulate that knowledge and the wisdom, and that's something that I believe Jesus did. He did it in stories, but he
Yeah.
was trying to figure out ways um, to raise the awareness of the human mind and the spirit. He had to do it in a way that could connect for people. He can't just say, "Hey, look, what if I told you you are a living God right now, and God's within you? You have everything that you need. You don't
Yeah.
have to. You don't have to have me to tell you that."
Yeah.
So it's just one of those where people want to, they need someone to sort of guide them. But I think that's in all cases, including me. But I just feel like, once you get awareness of that knowledge, it's not meant for you to just hoard in. No, you have to sort of figure out ways to share it and circulate it. So even through the podcast, I figure out ways to sort of put in like little tidbits of things without just going too over the top, or
Yeah.
been working out with my fighters. I talk to them every Wednesday, and I'll share little things that I might have read or learned about. And sometimes, yeah, we talk about you know our our vibration. We talk about energy. We talk about spirit.
Yeah.
Um, and it's one of those where I say it in a way that where it helps for them to connect from their awareness level. So I've told them before, I was like, look, what I say to you, you may not even get until a year later, and I'm
Yeah.
perfectly fine with that. I think some people feel like you have to have the perfect, even with preachers. I mean, you feel like you have to have uh, you know, the perfect sermon every Sunday or something like that, and
Right.
you don't. So it's like one of those where you just connect with people on their awareness level. If I can say something and it sort of hits your ears and hits your heart, it may not. It may take a year for that to gestate and sort of get in your system. And then if I say it again, and you're at a certain point in your life or life experience, now you can be like, oh, I get what you're saying now. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I enjoy, and that's something that I've always been willing to do. So
So I'm curious, like you use some language like vibration and you use language like awareness and things. Like what when you're referencing those things, for some of our listeners, I think they're still in this shift. They're still understanding like some other ways, like of explaining and living into these things. So like when you're talking to that, like what is that to you? Like what is that to and how did you get to from being a Southern Baptist to talking to people about patterning their vibrations and stuff? You know what I mean? Like, because that just doesn't happen. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like that just doesn't happen. So like, how did you get to this? What does that mean? What does that mean to you? What is that? What are in practical ways, like what does it mean to pattern your vibration differently and things?
yeah, great question. It's definitely been a sort of a constantly evolving to where I am now. But it's just one of those where it's been weird. I mean, it's been one of those. It's just certain points in your life to where you're just things um, sort of open up, and you find yourself like I find myself being just a voracious learner, like just learning new concepts, reading from different teachers and authors, and I think personally for me, there's something that I'm seeking.
Hmm.
Even researching the book, I find myself, while I'm developing the story and these characters, is like, I find myself like, like, what am I actually searching for?
Mm.
And I sort of figure out a way to sort of craft the story and using these characters as a way to sort of find that answer. Um, but uh, but yeah, with awareness, it's just really it just comes down to having to paraphrase I believe it was Dr. Dispenza. I believe it was having an open focus. Just
Mm.
not necessarily focusing on one thing per se, but just being really just being aware or being expansive to everything around you at that present moment.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, as far as from a practical standpoint, we can get, really wild with a lot of these concepts, but from a practical standpoint, is just being mindful, just being, just listening. Sometimes it could be as much as um, not texting while you're talking to someone,
Mm.
or it could be, walking on the beach and just you know picking up rocks or just enjoying the breeze or smelling the sea salt from the water, um, and not really focused on, oh, what I got things I got to do tomorrow, or I got things I got to do in the next hour. It's like, what are you doing right now at this present moment? And when you figure out that you have full control of that one frame in time,
Mm,
that's everything that you need, because those frustrations, the all the things you have to do, it's going to be there. It ain't, it's not going to end. Um, so being able to sort of create that frame in time to where you can just, um, you know, sort of quieten yourself, get silent. I really feel like, when we pray, we're speaking to God. When we get silent, God speaks to us.
yeah, it's good.
And so it's just one of those to where, yes, I'm always constantly, talking, asking, not really saying, oh, why is this happening to me? No, I sort of switched my language to, once I ask the question, the answers appear for me. So
Hmm.
if I say, hey, look, I wake up every morning, first of all, I tell myself, I'm in gratitude for getting up. But second of all, I tell myself, how do I need to show up today? How
Mm,
do I need to show up? If I need to show up as, someone that's a good husband or good father, or someone that's just willing for someone to, maybe someone needs to let off their frustrations, or they need to, vent or something like that. Just being there as a good friend, um, being someone that, perhaps I need to show up as a, creator, and, being able to create, amazing, designs for my clients. Sometimes I just, need to be, be there for maybe my body, and, stretching and doing little things to where I you know, really just give gratitude to my, to my joints, to my to my
yeah,
knees, my feet, because I've put it through some crap over, the course of 20, 30 years, and
yeah, you're an
being,
athlete,
yeah, being in gratitude for that. And so it's just like just little things, even when I'm talking to my grandkids, or talking to my, even to my brothers, kids, and just talking to them, and just seeing the spark in their eyes sometimes, uh, you know, that is, something that, just being aware of that, and knowing that this is, you know, this is the true essence of God. Like, when you say kids just come up to you, and, they love you for no matter what,
yeah,
that is God in its truest essence.
yeah,
Um, so those are things that, I feel like I'm being more aware of.
yeah,
Even being more aware of when I get irritated with certain things, and sometimes now I used to, I'd be like, oh, I get sort of irritated and defensive, and, now I'm like, huh, that's it's like, why are you acting like that? You sort of stop and, like, why are you reacting like this? Is this really necessary right now? And you sort of dive deep, and you sort of figure out, okay, yeah, you got irritated because such and such. But once you become aware of that, now you can change different things. You can respond to life
hmm,
a lot better. I think what happens is we react to everything instead of learning how to respond to life, and, feeling like, hey, look, I think once we shift that, and we say, okay, you know what, I I'm gonna have a great day no matter what. Things happen.
yeah,
Maybe a crazy bill comes in the mail, or maybe even one of my clients, it's like some kind of deadline project. Things happen, but at the same time too, I'm gonna be like, okay, I can either react to all this negatively, or I can say, okay, how can I respond to this in a way that I can, resolve anything that comes my way. Um, and that sometimes, yeah, heck, sometimes things happen. But I just try to figure out ways to just be more mindful, to be more
yeah,
aware in those situations, just learning how to just respond better. And I think that's the biggest thing anyone can do. You respond, if you can respond better to life, or to whatever things come your way, then I think life can be a little bit easier to you. I think once you react from a lower vibrational standpoint, or from a lower awareness, then sometimes you can get yourself in trouble if you're
yeah.
not careful.
Because it's going to mirror. Everything's going to be mirrored, and I think that's one thing that understanding some of this concept comes into reality is that it really is truly what we put out is what we receive, and that's what we're saying is in that vibrational space. Like there's a particular feeling that each of us have in the core of who we are, And it's like, if we want more of that, then we need to embody more of that. Whatever
Yeah.
we embody, that's what returns. And so that's where people like get into the law of attraction and things, which I think is accurate. I think it's science in a lot of ways. You do attract those things, and it's like, well, if you want more of these things in your life, then you have to embody that feeling. And meditation for me is exactly that. It's understanding that I am detaching myself from everything else that's around me, all of my desires, all of my fears. I my biggest thing that I've been releasing from lately is um, learning how to detach from excitement, which is hard for me because I get excited about everything. I'm a very happy-go-lucky person, and but I also, at the same token, have a tendency to go towards anxiety and worry. And so it's like, that's the same. People don't understand that that's the same vibration. It's the same neurological area of your brain that's happening whenever you are excited and whenever you are anxious.
Yeah.
It's in that same area. And so it's like, even though the excitement feels euphoric, it's like, if you give into that, then you better be ready for the yin and the yang. You better be ready for the opposite of that. The higher you go, the harder you fall, sort of thing, and the deeper it is. And so, like, even just to speak to that sort of vibrational thing, to help people get their head around that, is like, if I can remain in a place um, consistent, of calm, of steadfast, then I will always be receiving consistent calm and steadfast. And at the end of the day, like, we want contentment as people, and
Yeah.
we want to be able to know that we are provided for and that we are enough, and all of these things. And if we get excited about things, now all of a sudden we're associated with that, and we have to feel the excitement in order to feel validated, or in order to feel like we're on the right track. And sometimes that's not always the case. And so there's a lot of beautiful things that are happening. There's a book called The Surrender Experiment,
I love that.
and it's a great book, huh? And it's like, I just been surrendering, everything. Just as things come, I surrendered to them. And whether like, that guy had all the reason in the world to be excited, about the property he got, about building the temple, about these businesses, about being a billionaire. I mean,
Yeah.
he had every reason to be excited, but he did not touch or grip any of those things. Therefore, God said, here is a faithful servant who I can entrust more to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so many of us are just clinging and gripping our life in the most smallest ways, and we wonder why we aren't living a full life or an abundant life that Jesus says. And because he says, if you want your life, you got to lose it. You got to be willing to let it all go if you want to experience it fully.
Yeah.
And that's speaking to what you're saying. And I hope that you can maybe just speak a little bit more about this for a moment, about, like, you mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza, and you were talking about even like showing gratitude to like the joints in your body. Like, how have you seen that even help with like your recovery and your healing, and why is it important to speak words of gratitude and to feel gratitude for your body, and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've actually, I'll hint this at just a lot of people that I talk to, even a lot of athletes, and they'll be like, "Oh, whatever." Uh, but I truly believe, and it's, I'll say it's backed by science. I've always sort of seen myself. I told my wife, if I wasn't a creator, I would probably be a researcher. I'd probably be someone that's trying to create theories on everything. Um,
Yeah.
but backed by science. I mean, even your cells, everything in your body is constantly getting input. It's constantly hearing everything that you say, every little vibration, every feeling, every emotion. It remembers everything. And and a lot of times, especially specifically with athletes, we put our body through so much just over the course of years. But I really feel like just once your body knows that you are giving gratitude to itself, um, it will help you out when you ask for it. So it's just one of those where just saying those words, saying those, speaking that out, and saying to even when I do, it's just like, hey, look, thank you. I mean, I had some issues with my ankle and my elbow. One of my elbows specifically, I'd gotten hurt back in college when I was wrestling, and got it dislocated, tore some ligaments in my
Wow.
bicep, and um, so it's always sort of been sort of kinky, but had some issues with it, and yeah, it's just one of those words like, look, I tell myself all the time, hey, look, I am a quick healer. Um, I tell that to myself all the time, and but just talking to my ankles, talking to my elbow, and hey, look, thank you. I put you through some stuff, and I just want to tell you thank you. I'm in gratitude for every joint, cell in my body. Um, Thank you for my brain, my heart, my gut,
Mm,
all of them organs in my body. And it's just one of those, like, once your body knows that you love itself, it will respond to whatever you need. So it's like, hey, look, I love you. I'm gonna take my time with you, but I know I'm gonna get healed. I know I'm
yeah.
healing. Not to say, hey, look, I was like, oh, I'm broke down. I'm broke down. Like, even at my age, just, I'm 40, but the people that I usually train and I work out with, they're like 10, 15 years younger than me.
Mm,
So it's just one of those where I tell myself all the time, hey, look, I'm healing. Whatever sickness, whatever thing hits me, hey, look, I'm always healing. I'm a quick healer, and that's something I think once your body hears that all the time, that is the story that it knows. When we tell ourselves, "Oh, I always feel like this," or "I'm always broke down," or you know, uh, "I'm always hurting," that's what your body knows. That is the story right now,
yep.
and you have to figure out ways to destroy the old story about yourself before you can bring something new in. If you tell yourself, hey, look, I want this or I want that, and you're still working from a old paradigm about who you previously were, you're not going to get the healing.
Right.
So that's what, even with Jesus, when he healed, when he did his healings, when he did his miracles, he told them not to, don't go out and share this. um, you
Yeah.
know Keep that healing for yourself.
Yeah.
um, don't go out and proclaim it. So it's just one of those where I think once we get into that mode, and we start to destroy those old paradigms about ourselves, and we say, look, my body there's so many things that our body's capable of doing without us knowing it,
Right.
from a conscious standpoint. So the odds of our body hearing everything, feeling everything that we experience from an emotional, from a physical, spiritual standpoint, they remember everything.
Yeah.
and and a lot of times we don't do things to release that old toxicity, that old negativity out of our body, and sometimes it tends to manifest in various ways throughout our body. um, even with the book, with um, becoming supernatural, with Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's
Hmm.
had accounts of people going through his workshops, going through meditation, doing the breath work, changing their nutrition, and he's seen cases where it was people that had stage 3, stage 4 cancer. Doctor
Yeah.
said there was no way you're supposed to be living, and got themselves in a mode to where their body was able to reset everything for them. They just had to put themselves in the awareness and the paradigm to say, look,
Yeah.
even though physically I'm not seeing this yet, I know the healing is occurring. I know things are coming right now. And I
Yeah.
think once you change that old story about yourself and you bring in a new paradigm, your body automatically resets and shifts. And that's what happened with her. I think within a year, she went back to her doctor and saw nothing. And he was
Yeah.
just like, what did you do? So it's just one of those where if she's capable of doing that, just me from an athletic standpoint, just me saying, hey, look, maybe I have you know, some small injuries or a tear or something like that. Um, yes, do everything necessary, do the ice, the rest. That's all necessary. But I really feel like if you give that love, you give that attention, you tell your body that, hey, look, I know we're a quick healer. I know we're always healing. This isn't this isn't anything. Once we tell our body that, our body will respond to how we feel, how
Yeah.
we think about the story of ourselves. If I tell myself, hey, I'm always going to be an energetic, creative, athletic, a dynamic person, my body's going to respond to all that. So even if
Yeah.
something hits me, it's going to respond quick because that's the story that you know right now. If we tell ourselves, oh, I'm always tired, I'm always broke down, if something comes, if a sickness befalls you and you get sick, your body's not going to be able to respond to anything. Your immunity is going to be shut down because that is the story you tell it every
Right.
day. So I think being able to do body talk, being able to tell yourself every day that you are a creative, a powerful person. You're resourceful. You always have new opportunities coming in. You're always able to share inspiration. Um, you always have insights coming in that you can, for you personally, that you can share out to others, and things that you can implement in your own life. When you tell that story about yourself, things start coming in, things start flowing through. If you tell yourself, "Oh, I'm not a creative person," or this doesn't, I wish that would happen, but I'm not necessarily like that. Um, those are the stories that we tell,
Yeah.
and whatever story we tell, that's our reality right now. So unless you're able to or be willing to destroy the old story, the old paradigm about yourself, then you can't get that new healing to come in. So
Yeah. That's so good. I mean, the reality is, like, I've experienced this like firsthand.
yeah,
Like, really, and it's not just about like what you're saying. It's not just about thinking it or saying it. It's about embodying it.
yeah,
And when you embody it, these things happen, and I know that some people are a little, you know, timid to really believe these things, but like, this is a very like ancient technology of using we were actually just having a conversation about some of this last night. I had some friends over for a fire, and we were talking about this, and just about how a lot of the people of the East and even the ancient Middle East have, ancient Egyptians, like they knew about this sort of way. I don't know that there was always exact language for it, but there is. And even in India and Hinduism, the vibration and things, but like, there's always been this notion. And one of my friends was like, if we knew that, we were saying in the West, though, we don't really do this, and he's like, if this was real, like, why, like, we would totally be accessing this, all the time. And another person spoke up and they said, well, there's no money to be made on empowering people to the fullness of their potential. There's no money to be made there. So why in the world would that be? Of course, that's why America says, or the Western world says, oh, that's just a bunch of woo woo hoax BS, whatever, like. But when you see that there are results and people who are willing, like a lot of the work of Joe Dispenza, like, you change whenever it's either A, you've seen real results or in someone else, or B, yourself, and so that's what I love about you, like talking about to your body, seeing the real results of that, affirming yourself in who God has uniquely created each of us to be, and wholeness and restoration and freedom and healing is our God-given right and destiny to fill that in. Like, we are born for that sort of life.
yeah,
And people have a lot of pushback against that, especially with the times that we live in, but because we do witness a lot of suffering in the world. And that's why people say, well, why there's suffering and things. But what I love is that even when Jesus was confronted about money, he didn't ever give people a bunch of money because he knew that wouldn't solve their problems. He taught them different ways to think about themselves, their relationship to God, and the life that they live.
yeah,
Because he knew that if you can think differently and embody and live differently, money or this or that's neither here nor there. It all becomes a part of this one unifying thing of wholeness, and there's no lack in wholeness. It's
yeah,
whole, it's full. There's no empty spaces in that. And so I love that, and that's something that we've not really talked about much on this podcast, but has been a reality for my wife and I. And I always say, like, I always tell my wife, the physical is a manifestation of the spiritual.
mhm,
Like, we get so caught up in the physical images of things, or the physical reality, quote unquote, reality of where we're at today. And it's like, those are just manifestations of ourself, where we've been thinking. And sometimes there's systems in place that prevent people from experiencing that fullness, whatever. But oftentimes, like what Michael Beckwith talks about, his book, The Life Visioning, I listened to it on audiobook, but the first thing is saying, I'm not a victim. He talks about, I'm not a victim of everything. So if I can get past that now, like, okay, so I'm not a victim of my circumstances or my situations or my things that hold me back. Now, where do I go to? And I forget the exact order of it, but somewhere along that's like co-creator. And now you're invited to like, oh, okay, so I can participate in this thing. I can participate in all. And now you begin to see, oh, the second one is like manifester, then co-creator, and then whatever. But like, you begin to see that, like, okay, everything in my life is just a physical representation of something that's invisible, and all of the sudden life begins to open up in incredible ways, like. And so I know we're going to be, coming close to an end here at this, but for you, what has that been like for encouragement for people who are um, not fully bought in to some of these ideas and concepts and the things that we've experienced? Like, what do you do whenever you're confronted with people that don't really think that that is reality, or that's just some woo woo BS that you picked up, from somebody who can talk really good, talk really well? Look, here I am trying to talk about talking well, and I'm not even using correct English for it. Talking. There's the Midwest in me, talking good.
Oh, you don't want to see my country slang come out.
So like, how do you help people? And I know we've talked about this a lot, like putting it in ways that they understand. But if people are just like, they're listening to this conversation and they're like, I just don't really believe that you can, like, that your feeling or your embodiment or your vibration or your thoughts or your speech, like, affect your joints. Like, like, what do you normally do in those sort of situations? Have you been in those situations?
You know what? Not really. It's just one of those where I I think I've been really good about knowing my audience, and I think Jesus was too.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's one of those where if I'm in the audience to where I know people are more likely receptive to those concepts, then we can talk and talk about different experiences, talk about different things because I know everyone's sort of open to that or available to that. If I say if I'm talking to a um, a military guy, we get a lot of military that's looking to be a fighter. He's coming through. He's coming through with a lot of back experiences um, that I may or may not be able to connect with. But what I can do is figure out ways, figure out who he is, and say, okay, look, you're looking to become a fighter. And I tell a lot of them in there all the time. I'm like, look, um, I'm not the best teacher. I'm not the best coach in the world. Um, my job is to give you a message. And, with that message is to let you know that, like, whatever you're, you know, whatever you're trying to build, if you're looking to be a UFC champion or looking to, um, you know, start your own business or do whatever you want to, everybody's on their own unique journey. Um, then you're going to have to work from the inside out. You're going to have to reverse engineer everything. So if, and I've told them, I've given them examples. I was like, look, one example is something that comes to me all the time. I've been wrestling for pretty much most of my life, and a lot of these guys they'll come in and be like, "How do you, how do you get in shape for wrestling?" Or it's like, "Oh, I've got to work on my cardio," and because wrestling gonna be a real high paced sport, and it's one of those where I've told them I was like, "Well, what do you believe right now?"
Mm,
And they asked me like, "Well, what do you mean by that?" I was like, "If you came in here every day and worked out, did everything necessary, and you believed that, hey, I've got bad cardio, or I believed I don't feel like I'm getting in shape, your body will respond to everything that you just said right now.
mm,
That's your story right now. I tell myself all the time, I mean, look, I'm not like in tip top shape, but I know, it's like I know once I get myself sort of in that state to where I'm just training, I know my body's gonna respond. I expect it to hey, look, I'm always in good shape. That's the things that I tell myself. Like even if I'm just hadn't done anything for a month, I my body remembers everything. It knows,
Yeah.
and I know that it knows. So yeah, we get back once I get in there training and I'm doing everything necessary. It gets back to where where I previously was from a athletic standpoint or from a conditioning standpoint. If you don't believe you will never get in shape, then that is your belief. You will never get in shape.
Right.
And life will tell you you will never get in shape. You can do everything necessary. And that's something that, and I told him this. I was like, you don't ever get what you want. You get who you are.
Mm.
So you could get, you could wish for everything on this planet. You could wish for healing. You can wish for, anything that you desire. But if you don't embody that, if you are not that thing,
Mm.
you won't broadcast the energy needed to for it to manifest in your life. And that's
Yes.
and I think that's sometimes where we get caught up is feeling like uh, I want this, I want this, I want this, instead of saying, okay, wait a minute, let's switch the story, let's change it up. Because I've loved talking with little kids because they have no difference between what's imaginary and what's real.
Right.
What if what if I woke up today, tomorrow, and I literally had everything that I desired right now? What if I had everything I needed right now? What would I do? What would I be doing right now?
Yeah.
How would I show up? Who would I even speak to? How would I speak to people? Would I be more loving? Would I be more giving if I had everything? I don't need any more. What if I could give more, share out more knowledge, share out more wisdom? Because I don't need it because I'm already it.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those. I think we just a lot of times, and I'll tell them that it's like you never get what you want. You get who you are. If you are a person that knows you're capable of doing incredible things just come up naturally to you. Things just happen.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you're under the old paradigm, the old story, and feeling like I've done all this work, I've done all this, why is nothing happening? Is because you haven't switched into becoming that thing itself. You're chasing after the thing that you're trying to attain instead of being what if I was that right now.
Yeah.
And I think once that happens, then things start manifesting, things start shifting for you. And I think that's what Jesus was trying to explain, but he had to explain it in a way for his audience to understand.
Totally. Totally get that. Man, I love this. And to me, I feel like as we wrap up, like if people have questions about this or need to learn more about what it means to embody this sort of lifestyle to see them enter into the fullness, I think Jesus talks about the abundant life as an invitation to
Mm.
something that is happening around us all the time. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, and the willingness to give up your life so that you may gain it, like if people have that, just want to encourage them to begin to start small with things and to embody this moment, show gratitude, and begin to change the narrative of their mind. And if they want to reach out to me, reach out to you. And just want to give you an opportunity really quick as we close to plug what you're doing and how people can get in touch with you and follow along with what you do.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Just ways to follow me. You can. I'm always on Instagram, so you can definitely send me a DM at Quantal Langford, Quantal Langford, Langford. From what I've seen, I think I'm the only one on Instagram, Quantal Langford. So if you find it, it should be easy to find. You can check out my design studio at the Langford Studio. That's on Instagram or at Langford Design on Facebook, or you can check out the podcast. The podcast is The Creative Brew TV, and like I said, it should be easy to find. So it's The Creative Brew. It comes out every Tuesday. I usually come out with a new episode every Tuesday, so getting close to 100 episodes. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, definitely just being consistent. But yeah, that's just a mix of branding, a mix of entrepreneurship, mindset, spirituality, wellness. comics, sci-fi, all the things that I love. That is the creative brew in its essence. And then if you want to check out the graphic novel, which is called Seed, and the first book is the Song of the Resonant. Um, so it's a sci-fi fantasy book, but it's really deeply rooted into a lot of spiritual concepts. If you want to find out if you're a seed, go to Seed book series on Instagram, and you can check out the artwork. And I'm right now writing the pages right now, and looking to my plan is to publish this year. And but yeah, I really truly feel like that would be a book that I, honestly, I don't see it as just a graphic novel. I'd almost see it as just a book for people to gain a true awareness as far as who they possibly could be. And I think that's the story, with
Mm,
the characters that I'm developing for that.
that's so cool, man. I love it. Well, be sure to check it out, everybody, and give a follow. And thank you so much for joining me here on the Spiritual Nomad podcast, my friend.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it, Luke.